What do you fear?
I fear saying something that will piss off the fastest growing ethnic group in the UK. That is what I fear. I just didn't fuck with mixed race people at all.
Fair.
Because my attitude was, I'm not under you.
Yeah.
And I'm not going to play into that. And you're not going to come around here trying to make me feel less than because your skin is lighter.
I can tell you, to live this world as a mixed person can be crazy making. There have been times where I've felt envious of Black friends who never had to face that violence in their own family. We all deserve a level of safety in your home. And
True.
when it's a white family member, it's literally just superiority. Roots and Rigour, Rigour and flow. Roots and Rigour, Rigour and flow. Roots and Rigour, Rigour and flow. Rigour and flow.
One. Welcome to Rigour and Flow with me, Aiwan.
And me, Tamanda, the show where business meets love.
And culture meets critique.
Yes.
I think you're going to have to lead on today's episode. So I'm going to really just put the ball in your court.
Are you walking in trepidation?
Huge trepidation.
What do you fear?
I fear saying something that will piss off the fastest growing ethnic group in the UK. That is what I fear.
Okay. Well, today we are talking all things mixed race.
Yes.
Identity. Sparked by a question, actually, which is, are mixed race people properly Black?
Ooh. So what spurred this episode on was I was on Instagram and something popped up on my timeline, a reel, which I'm going to play for you. And then as a result of that reel, I kind of started asking you some questions.
Yeah.
And that led to the formation of this episode.
Yeah.
So shall I play you?
Yes, although I want to say in fairness, it extended many conversations we'd had on the subject before.
That's true.
So I think that's important. But anyway, we'll get into it.
Agreed.
I want to hear it.
So let's play this.
Mixed race person, mental. I do find that a lot of mixed race people are a lot more emotional about.
Trying to trigger me about.
You're triggered straight away. That's why you're saying why are you trying to trigger me, because you're mixed race. But I realise a lot of mixed race people. Why
are you triggered? Don't be triggered. What is mixed race? What?
They're mixed race triggered.
What?
But I'm saying we're proper Black people here. Mixed race people, I do notice they go harder for Black issues than even Black people. When you look at it, no joke. Because my sister, remember I said I've got a mixed race sister, so I actually understand mixed race people and it's a mixed race brother. I grew up with them, so I know you lot are mental. So whatever you lot are saying to me, I know you lot got mental health from birth.
Who's you lot? Everyone's
and
different,
you.
just like every Black person's different.
Of you individually mixed race are maniacs. You've got mental health. You're in therapy.
Maybe.
You need to go therapy.
I don't disagree.
You don't know, man.
Yeah, you don't
No, I know
know
that you need to go therapy. I can see in your eyes.
Most people, to be fair,
I can see in your eyes you're
need
mental.
some therapy.
You can see she's mental.
I mean, where's to start with that? Can I give you my reaction?
Yeah, give me your reaction.
Okay. Well, I'm not going to lie, I did giggle at certain bits just because it was so outrageous, more than because it's true. And also because nothing he said shocked me. Like, I kind of have this sense. Yeah. Were you shocked by it?
Some of it, yeah.
What shocked you about it?
What, saying that all mixed race people are crazy and have mental health problems and need to go therapy? I mean, to me, that felt... Let's swap mixed race for, I don't know, Jewish.
Oh, don't get it twisted. It's shocking and it's inappropriate.
Yeah.
But what I mean by it is I have a real sense from walking this planet as a mixed race person that the kinds of things that he's saying are not uncommon. People might not say them to your face, but they may believe them.
Okay.
Right?
Yeah.
So
we have that
kind
with like, you know, the Black community as well, right?
Of which we are part, but yes.
No, but I'm talking about us as a Black community. There are things that people don't
okay.
say, but they definitely believe.
Yeah,
You know what I
for
mean?
sure, for sure.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
About, you know, intellect and rate of work. Like, there's so many things.
Yeah. This guy clearly genuinely feels, off his anecdotal of his, like sample of his sisters, that mixed race people are crazy. Whatever, we can get into that, because I can tell you, to live this world as a mixed person can be crazy making. Precisely because of people like him.
Yeah.
So maybe there's an element of truth, but to frame it as a mixed race person issue, like, he is part of the crazy making that many of us would have to face, to be completely honest with you. But also, it's clearly just a wild stereotype that he's just applying. So I'm not going to condone that, but I can see why, watching someone like him, you might end up losing your mind.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? It's a lot.
Yeah.
First of all, let's talk about what he's really saying. In his basic argument seems to be mixed race people are more emotional, more easily triggered, and then they have mental health issues from birth and need to be in therapy. He's asking if mixed race people are even properly Black people. He's saying that that's the bit that surprised me, was that he made this thing about mixed race people go harder for Black issues than Black people. I want to come back to that at the end of this episode.
Yeah, I don't know that I'd ever thought about that part, to be fair. That was kind of a bit new for me.
That was new for me.
Yeah.
Not going to lie. But I actually have a theory on it, which is why I want to come back to it.
Okay.
Because I want to talk, if that is the case for some mixed race people, I want to talk about why that might be.
Okay.
And I will have to say, I have met plenty of mixed race people who want to be colorblind.
Yeah, that's the one I'm more used to.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Like the narrative that I hear amongst fellow mixed race people that drives me the most insane is, we get to be the best of both worlds and move through the world with everything, which the levels of unpacking that need to be done to deal with that mindset, to me, are just, that could be a whole episode in itself.
Yes. Yes.
So, I mean, he can't even make that statement as a generalization. But then to finish it off with, I know because I have a sister. I mean, it's literally like saying, I know because I have a Black friend. As a Black man, for him to come with that one is just kind of madness to me.
Yeah. I've got Black friends. That old chestnut. All right. So let's dive into some of the data.
The mixed race experience
Yeah,
data.
let's dive into that.
One thing we definitely know as we head into this episode is that mixed race population in the UK is growing rapidly. I believe it's the fastest growing population. And I happen to believe there's there's a lack of understanding in general about mixed race identities and the way they get talked about. And in particular, in places like London, we're seeing that population on the rise. And within mixed race identifying people, there are two groups that are growing the fastest, and they are white and Black Caribbean and white and Asian.
Okay.
Okay.
I feel like that makes sense.
Yes. Why would you?
Well, based on the migration into the country over the last few decades, like certainly in the last century, for example. Obviously, Caribbeans came over to rebuild the nation after World War II, and Asians came over for a whole bunch of reasons. There were ones who were expelled from different parts of Africa, specifically like
Uganda, 60s, Idi Amin.
Exactly. And they came over for various reasons. Obviously, India and Pakistan were colonized by the British, and so they came over from there as well.
Yeah.
So that kind of makes sense, the two dominant migration.
Yeah, mass migration was those two groups primarily in the first instance in this country.
Precisely.
So it would make sense that we've now got to a point in terms of generational change where those populations are integrating with what was the dominant group.
Yes.
White British people.
Exactly.
I find that in itself quite interesting because apparently between the 2001 census and the 2021 census, the population of mixed people almost doubled. It was 40% increase, I think. And it was those groups that are growing, most rapidly. Oh, wow. And I actually found it quite illuminating to hear that stat because I don't think there's anywhere near enough research or understanding about the mixed race experience. But when you do hear it discussed by some of the brilliant researchers that I know in this country, it tends to be a mixed race experience that is that, right?
Okay.
White, Black Caribbean, and white. Actually, I don't hear so much white and Asian, actually, if I'm honest. Sometimes I've heard a bit in my circles about white and British-born Chinese mixes.
Yes. And can I just interject there? I think one of the things as well within that mixture, I tend to find that it tends to be the mum that is white and the man that is either Black, Jamaican or Asian. That tends to be the mix I come across most predominantly.
Okay, that's super interesting. I want to get into that when we get into our personal experiences of it, because I think I have a different experience of mixedness, and that's what I was coming to with what I was saying is I found it affirming to realize that that's the group, because it helped me understand why mixed identity in this country, in the UK, gets talked about in this way that feels so wildly different from my experience.
Yes.
Right? I feel like when I hear stories of mixedness, it's people who've been raised in Britain or the US and not in the same way that I was on the continent of Africa.
Yes.
And therefore have this very different relationship with their mixed identity.
Okay.
So yeah, just understanding the stats and why that would be the case, that you're hearing that story more, made sense to me.
You've mentioned that your experience was different than the one that I have seen or been exposed to. So I guess my question to you is, more broadly, do you think people understand the mixed race experience, I guess, in the UK or even globally?
Well, I mean, let's start with the guy who spoke at the top of the episode that we referred to. No, is the simple answer. I think in general, people struggle sometimes with mixed identities because it's not easy to categorize or put into a box, because you've basically got a human in front of you that fits more than one box or social script that you understand. And people don't like things to be complicated. They like things to be simple.
Yeah, they like it black and white.
Exactly.
Excuse the pun.
Yeah. Very, very. They like it ebony and ivory.
Ebony and ivory. There is no brown
or shades of grey.
Key, no shades of grey key.
Yeah.
Yes.
It's like, what do we do?
Yeah.
There probably is a shades of grey key somewhere. Other scales that exist in the world don't follow the
absolutely.
piano.
Like the Indian music scale has like quarter tones and that go in between. Yeah, so
maybe
definitely.
I'm just a quarter tone, a walking quarter tone.
Oh my God, you are an Indian raga.
Yes, they were right. No, but to go back to your question, I mean, I think, looking at what we saw at the top of the episode, I think people struggle to understand. And I guess in that context, it's really easy to just say, oh, these people are crazy.
Yes.
Because it's a much easier thing than having to engage with that experience.
Or even the reason for that craziness.
Yeah, or the nuances that are involved. However, if you ask me, do I think mixed race people are understood in the UK? I have to say that I can only say, do I think my mixed race experience is understood? And the answer to that is definitely no. And it goes back to who's represented.
Okay.
The more people may have encountered mixedness, but they're encountering it in certain dynamics. And the kind that I mentioned earlier, Black, Caribbean, and white.
Yes, or Asian and white. So then, right?
Yeah, and then born in this country.
And born in this country again. And we're going to get into your story now. So I want to know, what is your story?
So I think one of the key differences is that, first of all, I was raised on the continent of Africa in a Black majority context, which is very different from the mixed race people you see
in what country?
About. So in Botswana specifically, in Southern Africa. And then second of all, I have a Black mother, Motswana, and a white British father. And when I look at some of my other peers who speak about the mixed race experience, they very often have a white British mother with a Black or Asian father.
Right.
And
just before you go on, you said Motswana.
Yeah.
Can you explain that? Because it took me some time to really understand the different ways you referred to the people of Botswana. I'll just say that. Because I know I'm going to get it wrong.
No, I did
Break it down.
nearly decide to break it down. And I thought maybe
I
I'll
think
be
it's
giving
important,
too much detail.
because even
but
I'm still trying to learn.
no, for real. It's a bit complicated where I come from. But Botswana is the country. A single, if you're referring to one person from Botswana, you say they're Motswana with an M at the front. If you're referring to multiple people from Botswana, you say they're Batswana, B-A.
Botswana, okay.
And then the language that we speak is Setswana.
Setswana.
Now, I wish we could do this as a public service announcement to sports commentators, because every time we have like let's see
when he won the 200
meters at the Olympics. It doesn't matter. Even my brother was an athlete, so my whole life I've just heard it butchered. Everyone just says the Botswanan.
Yeah. And now that I know, I'm like, it doesn't sound right.
Does it irritate you as well?
Yeah, it irritates me now.
Once you know, if you know, you know.
And that's it, end of.
And that's it.
Yeah. Okay.
But yeah, so my mum is a Motswana, like a one person who comes from Botswana, and our family is Batswana.
Nice.
Yeah.
Love it.
Did you like that lesson?
Oh, I loved it. I love to learn.
Okay.
As we discovered from our algorithm.
Yeah,
I use YouTube
true.
for learning.
and Instagram for fun.
For black. That's why I stumbled across that guy.
That's true. It's true.
In a way, you've had experiences of both. Growing up mixed race in an African context, and then coming to the UK and doing the rest of your growing up here in the UK. So that's really, really interesting to me. So let's start with Africa. What was it like growing up mixed race in an African context?
So I have to say, in general, I felt a greater sense of belonging and acceptance on the whole growing up in Africa. It wasn't uncomplicated. And maybe the things that made it easier were the fact that in a Black majority context, if you are lighter skinned or have a degree of proximity to whiteness, like some privilege in that regard, it's not going to come down negatively on you, right? In a Black majority context, because you've still got Western culture and whiteness to some extent being valorized, even in a country like Botswana, where people are fiercely patriotic, proud of our culture, everything else, right? So on the whole, it was cool. I was just constantly surrounded by Black people. I didn't think anything of it. Of course, I knew my father was white. That didn't have any negative social repercussions. So I didn't have a lot of issues. The only things you would see were, and this is a regret of mine, that my parents didn't see it to be important for me to learn Setswana, the language, local language, because they were like, nobody understands Setswana in the world. So us investing this time speaking to you, it's a waste of time. It doesn't accrue you any benefits. In society, everyone speaks English, and it's our official language in Botswana as well.
Does your dad speak Setswana?
No, which I'm sure is a feature of white privilege. Okay. So, but in the social hierarchy in that culture, even though English is an official language and you can easily be fine, there was this sense of you're not a real Motswana because you don't speak the language.
Okay.
And because I was lighter skinned, I would get called Makoa, which is the Setswana word for foreigner, usually ascribed to a white person, but it can be also any foreigner.
Yeah. We have the same in Nigeria.
Yes, which
we have Uibo.
Exactly.
And that just refers to, white, but also foreigner. You're not here from here. You're
exactly.
You have some interesting ways.
That's exactly the thing. Which growing up, when you're born and raised in that country and your mother's Motswana and half of your family are Motswana, it's like, okay, but I am from here. But I got it as well. And I think I felt lonely and unable to connect with people. And I think that was much more down to not being able to speak the language. It's very painful wishing to know family members and not being able to because of a language barrier.
Yes.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, especially when you live in the same country.
Exactly.
Just down the road.
Or in the same house.
Oh, yeah.
In my case, So that was challenging. And I think what it did was undermine my confidence in participating in my culture and in my family, one side of my family of origin more. So like, for example, even things like in school, we would have the chance to do extracurricular activities. And one of them was Setswana, like cultural dance. And in our cultural dance, you often wear like animal skin leathers, and you wear these seeds on your legs that you like make a percussive sound or whatever. Now, I didn't do that, not because I didn't want to. I really desperately wanted to, but I felt I wouldn't be accepted. And the only other, mostly girls doing traditional dances extracurricular were Botswana girls who were fluent in the language. So I kind of felt on the outside of a thing that was my culture.
Okay.
But by and large,
and they didn't invite you in.
I think they did. They were. The people weren't rejecting, but also people are already speaking a language. So what are they going to do? Change for you? And I don't think that should happen, right? I should have to learn. That's the first thing. And second, our culture is kind of jokey. And one of the things that happens is if you try, or what I found when I tried to speak the language, was that people would often laugh.
Yeah, that's not even particular to Botswana, you know?
No, I'm sure
I mean,
it's not.
like, even I have loads of friends who are like Yoruba, and they will talk about how the reason why they don't speak as much is when they try, they get mocked for their accent.
Yeah.
You know, by
for the
family
accent
members.
or for not knowing. And so it was a constant, and sometimes they're meaning it in goodwill, but the bottom line is when you already feel ashamed that you don't know your culture, you then have to sit through a very uncomfortable process of feeling more and more shame in yourself.
Yes.
And that was hard. But I think the other reason that it wasn't so hard in Botswana was that we have a cultural story. The founding story of our nation is one in which our first president, Sir Seretse Khama, married an English woman and was exiled at a time when mixed race marriages and miscegenation was in the civil rights era. Basically, it was not a good look, basically, and they got exiled from Britain. But that meant
and that led to the film, right?
Yes, a United Kingdom.
A United Kingdom.
Yeah, exactly, which is a real...
Is it David Oyelowo?
Yes, there's a bit of a whitewashing of the whole country's history in it.
There usually is.
Romanticising
we
of all
can't
sorts. but in a way, that romanticising is the same national story, right? The country had a narrative of we are open, we are inclusive, we are multicultural, we are different from the Britain that exiled us, and we are different from an apartheid South Africa next door. So down to our first president, mixed raceness is there. It's even in some of our songs, and it's in some of our wedding songs. So to be mixed race was not perceived. It was perceived broadly. I wouldn't even say positively. It was just a thing. Mm-hmm. I wouldn't say I saw, like, when I met Nigerian peers later, they used to have this big thing about light skin and, oh, she's, lighter and fair. In Botswana, I don't remember any of that.
Okay.
I may be wrong, but I don't recollect it in the same way as when I met other contexts, and definitely not South Africa.
So you talked about your country's sort of founding story of unity and inclusiveness, and it's almost founded on a mixed race story, a mixed race love story, right? An interracial love story.
Yeah.
But your neighbour, South Africa, was the complete opposite because it was apartheid, right? Did you ever visit South Africa?
Oh, yeah.
I mean, because what I found is when we went to Botswana last year, we had to fly through South Africa to get the plane from, we were Cape Town, to Botswana. So, yeah, tell me about, did you visit and what was that like?
Going to South Africa, which I did a lot, challenged my mixed race identity in different ways. So I'm born in 1985, aging myself, but just it's important for the context because we only got to the post-apartheid New South Africa in 1994.
Exactly.
Okay. So by which time I was, 9, 10, about to turn 10. And where in Botswana being mixed race was unremarkable, when we crossed the border to South Africa, which was frequently, it was a totally different story. The first time I ever went across the border, my parents packed me off on a plane to see some family friends at age 7. Mm-hmm. And I went somewhere called Port Elizabeth. And I stayed with white friends who used to be our neighbours in Botswana. And we had been totally fine as kids, played. And that was the first time I spent time with my best friend and saw a totally different reaction in him towards me. And it was when we were bathing together one evening after a day of playing, and he started commenting to his mum on my skin and my body. saying that I was fat. It was just a child making a comment.
Okay.
You know how kids just say what they think?
They can be cruel.
And that I was dirtier. I mean, we were both like 7. We were young. I'm not saying that's excusable, but I was just like, oh, okay, I've not heard this before, and this isn't the kid I remember.
And that's a shift from him being in Botswana with you to him now being in a South African context.
Yeah, and it can't have been long. I imagine it must have been within a year or 2 of him leaving. And we were kids, babies. So that was one, something's changed very quickly. Even as a kid, I mean, I'm actually recounting this story for the first time. But I remember thinking, oh, this is not my friend that I knew, the one that I used to play with in the sand pit. And I was like, oh, okay. And he also wasn't like other white boys I grew up with in Botswana necessarily. So it was something, I knew something had changed, but I didn't quite understand what. Apart from some of that, it was a great time, a great holiday. But the other reason we used to cross the border a lot is because my uncle and aunt, so my father's brother, lived in South Africa, and they were white, and they, had a fair amount of land, and they were fairly comfortable, let's put it that way. And so we would go and visit them during school holidays because they would host us. And that's when I noticed things. It would be points when we were crossing the border. Suddenly you have to fill in forms. As an adult, I look back and I realize those sort of weird energy shifts when you presented your passport and your form, when the person at the border is looking at you, looking at your father, looking back at you and your brother, looking back at your father.
And the mother?
My mother wasn't there, which we'll come to.
Okay.
You realize something's weird, but you don't know what. Later you grow up and you realize, okay, because South Africa operated on such a rigid racial hierarchy that you had whites, Indians, coloureds, and blacks separated, right? And their legislation was about anti-miscegenation. In other words, you are not supposed to marry or have sexual relations with someone outside of your race. So they are looking at you as a mixed race person, and they're like, why are you with this white guy?
It's almost like you're a walking illegal human.
Exactly.
Which is just obscene.
Obscene. And actually Trevor Noah talks about this. He's got, his mother's name is Patricia, which is my mother's English name as well. And I always remember reading his book, I think it was Born a Crime it was called, and being like, oh my gosh, someone has articulated this thing that I also felt. The difference with him is he was walking around with his mum, who when they were seen by someone like a border official or police, the mum would have to let go of his hand because as a black woman, she was vulnerable. The difference for me was I was crossing the border with a white man.
And you're not going to
challenge
exactly.
him
There's
in the same
power
way.
there. Yeah.
So back to your question, why was my mum not there? It was because my mum, I mean, I remember once asking her, why did you never come to trips in South Africa? And she gave me this really flippant response of something like, I can't be bothered. I've written about it in a blog. And she gave me something like, oh, I can't be bothered then. When I probed her more, it was because when she had crossed the border and come to stay with my aunt and uncle in South Africa, she could understand the domestic workers who worked in the house because she spoke Setswana. And I think they were speaking either Setswana or another understandable language. And they were saying, why is this other domestic worker drinking from the white man's cup? So you can imagine the confrontation.
Yeah.
You just wouldn't have had.
That's a lot of
black
friction.
women. It was just. It must have been awful to cope with, and even for me as a mixed race person, I was always picking up stuff in that context. Like, I would sit there thinking, so I'm half descended of you guys. But then when you talk about the people who work on your land, you refer to someone who looks like my uncle, who I love in Botswana, a black man, as the boy. Not by his name, as the boy. So that's what I mean when I said I crossed the border into South Africa. It was just like, whoa, this thing means something completely different.
It's like a paradigm shift.
Yeah. And of course it would be, because race is a construct.
Yeah.
So we decide what meaning we give blackness or whiteness or anything between those poles in each context. And in that context, I saw, we don't have a nice story of interracial harmony. We have the opposite.
Yes.
And this is what it means.
Yes.
You know?
So you've gone from that context into a context of abject racial disharmony, dissonance, chaos, right?
Yeah.
What are some of your, I guess, maybe a moment that really encapsulated?
Yeah, I think you're right. Most of it
experience.
was like confusion, because I was looking at, so where do I fit when I know my ancestry is two things. But I think the moment when I knew something about my Blackness was very important to me, as I look back through an adult's eyes, was I remember that in May 1991, which was it was on Labour Day. I know now as an adult that was the day that Black people were allowed for the first time on certain beaches in South Africa.
That had previously been whites only beaches.
Yeah.
Okay.
And it happened to coincide with a holiday that myself, my dad, and my brother were on in South Africa. And on this occasion, we weren't staying with my relatives. We were staying in a holiday inn on Durban Beach in South Africa. And I had been looking forward to this day for ages, because Botswana is a landlocked country. So I'd never really been to the beach in that way. Mm-hmm. And I knew that I was going to get to make a sandcastle, and I was really, really excited. And I remember we had breakfast in the hotel, and then my dad took me and my brother over to the beachfront. And that beach was just thronging with people. I mean, Botswana is sparsely populated, and I had never seen so many people in one place. And the energy, like I can still feel it in my body today. It was like palpable. There was this really weird, heady mix of, I would call, excitement and liberation and freedom, and also fear.
I was going to say, there must have been some trepidation, because you're stepping into a space that you've previously been told you can't be in. And if you step into that space, the repercussions are quite severe.
Yeah. You're allowed, but are you really allowed? It's like you've lived in a prison so long, now the prison is mental, right?
Yes.
And I really felt this, I remember that was so visceral. And I remember I kept sort of looking around and trying to make my sandcastle. And I just became more and more aware of all of these eyes looking over at me and my brother and my dad.
Oh, yeah.
Staring and pointing. And I, as a kid, I just didn't understand it, but I knew it was important. And it was important enough that I remember asking my dad, like, what's everyone staring at? And I was really irritated by it.
And what did he say?
I think he said something flippant, like, you don't need to worry about them. Like, he didn't explain it to me.
Do you know what I find interesting? Because the presence of a white man on a beach that had been previously whites only would probably have been a contributing factor to some of their fears. Like, why is that white man here?
Oh, yeah. That's true. He might have been a threat.
He might have been a threat.
Yeah.
And then, of course, he's now got two mixed race kids. And then it's like, but he's got two mixed race kids. I'm trying to understand that, actually. Is he friend? Is he foe?
That's so true, because when I reflected on this in a written piece, I had been thinking about more that we were apparitions. We were the unimaginable, because you were not supposed to racially mix. But you're right, there would have been a mix of threat.
Yes.
And that's partly my proximity to whiteness that made me not see that, because to me, he represents things like love and care and affection, but he would not have to those people.
No, that's pretty intense.
Yeah.
Especially being a kid. And, kids can sense that things aren't quite right, but none of the adults are really telling them the detail of what's going on. So it's like a kind of soup of confusion, right?
Yeah.
I'm wondering, so that was the African context. How does that compare to the UK context?
Yeah, it's interesting because, UK threw it out again completely.
Okay.
So first of all, when I left Botswana in 97, I went to Northern Ireland. Now, Northern Ireland at the time was still...
That would have been a trip.
It was a trip. I mean, it was in the process of negotiating the Good Friday Agreement, which was intended to bring an end to sectarian conflict between Catholics and Protestants. And it had been quite a brutal place. And because of that conflict, more people had emigrated out of Northern Ireland than ever come in. So their immigration numbers, particularly anyone non-white, were very low at that point. And so as a result, when I turned up there, my peers had never seen someone who wasn't white. Like,
so you were literally an alien.
I was literally an alien to them. Like, I never met another black person in my 3 years there at all.
Okay.
And I was the only one. And obviously I went without my black family. So I was put into a context with white family. And the first thing I realized is that in that context, when they don't know anything other than white people, you're immediately made black. So there wasn't even a construct or an idea.
There's
of
not
what
even a
mixedness
language
was.
for that.
There wasn't a language.
Yeah.
And that was super weird for me, because even in South Africa, where it had been so brutal, I still had an understanding of race that acknowledged both sides of my ancestry. But suddenly I had one that was like, I'm living with literally my family who are white, and you still don't have a language for that. You almost see me as if I've been, I don't know, adopted. I swear people thought I was just like plucked out of Africa, because the level of prejudice was like, do you have lions in your back garden? I mean,
do you have
a terrible
lions?
accent. I'm so sorry. But it was like, it was like so rudimentary. You live in mud huts. Where are your family? Are they safe? We see pictures of the Ethiopian famine. So is that some of your friends? I mean, that's like, it was just like, oh my God, it was just wild. So there wasn't even a way in which mixedness wasn't understood. My experience was very much, the N word. It was the experience of anyone black, perceived to be black. Because in that context, I was the blackest of the black. I think one of the things that made it especially hard in Northern Ireland is there's, often when you go through racism, you realize you survive it by a casual look over, a knowing look with another black person who sees an injustice or who sees some nonsense. And if it's a small microaggression, someone says something that's like minor but basically racist, you laugh it off, or you acknowledge each other, or you affirm each other. In that context, I had no one. So when something went wrong, it was difficult.
You were on your own.
I was on my own. And also, sometimes it was around family members, well-meaning questions.
Like?
But, how, I think I've mentioned this on a previous episode, but how does it feel being the only black person in your school?
Black.
Well-meaning questions.
Yeah.
And then other ones like, so do you use normal shampoo? And you're just like, even my child brain was like, normal? Like what's normal? Because my normal was a black majority context where all the hair products are black people.
Yeah.
So it's like completely shaped by this white Western norm, right?
Yeah.
Anyway, whatever. It was weird. And I think the thing that feels important about that is in the context of family, and this I think is something that guy at the top doesn't understand. When you are misunderstood, misrecognized, or invalidated by people who are close to you, your brother, your sister, your cousin, your aunt, your uncle, there is an intimacy to that kind of violence that when it happens at the hands of strangers, you don't really have in the same way.
Yeah.
It can be painful, but at the end of the day, they're not the person who's supposed to be your caretaker, who's supposed to love you, who's your blood brother or sibling, even if it's half your bloodline, do you know what I mean? It has a particular pain that is so foundational to a person's need for connection in a family of origin that I think is really overlooked and needs to be therapeutically studied.
Yeah. And I wonder with him, because obviously he's a dark-skinned black guy with two mixed race sisters. I wonder if it's both, as in he's obviously directing violence at them with the things that he's saying. But I wonder if in his family of origin, there's something about maybe the violence he was experiencing at being the odd one out.
Yeah, I mean, we don't know about his context.
Context.
So, but yeah, it would be an interesting thing to explore.
To explore, yeah.
Yeah, I don't know his situation, but what I know is I've sometimes found the racism from family members much harder to deal with than from a stranger.
Of course.
Because especially when it's a caregiver.
Yeah.
Because you're like, you're supposed to protect me.
And you're not safe.
Supposed to, you're essentially, even in your own home, you're not safe. So it's a certain kind of psychological or spiritual violence that comes with it.
Exactly.
And to go back to his question of why do mixed race people ride harder for black issues?
Oh, yeah.
For me, if someone was to categorize me as someone who rides hard for black issues, it's because when you encounter it from such a young formative stage in your family of origin, you know the precise contours of race and racism and how it works and where it's used, and you have watched the pain of your whole family be like a whole family divided, one group closed off from certain resources or access to certain things compared to another. And so you feel the injustice so intimately if you're willing to look at it.
Yeah.
And for me, that's one of the reasons why I feel so strongly about those issues. It's not some random group, or it's not like I can only have affinity. I'm part of both of those legacies.
That's the thing.
So I have to reckon with that in a very particular way.
Yeah.
And not just go, well, I get the best of both worlds.
Yeah.
Well, what's the worst of both worlds? Let's talk about that.
Yes.
And let's talk about what that means for how you show up in the world.
Yes.
Acknowledging the privileges and then acknowledging the harms. What does that mean? I'm going to say one more thing that might be quite controversial.
Hit me with it.
Because there's definitely a lot of privilege that comes with being like fairer skinned. However, one thing I will say is there have been times where I've felt envious of black friends who never had to face that violence in their own family, and then also claim like, look at only the privilege argument, because I'm like, we all deserve a level of safety in your home. And I'm not saying that in black families you get that safety. There's a lot of anti-Blackness within in black families.
And colourism.
There's huge amounts of it, but often it's also directed back to oneself. And
True.
When it's a white family member, it's literally just superiority.
Yes.
And that took me a long time to work through that, because I don't think, particularly as a politically conscious black person, that feels like a thing that's really acceptable to say, but it is the truth.
Yeah.
I felt like really often unseen by black peers who didn't understand what it's like to navigate that at home.
Yeah.
You know?
That makes sense.
Yeah. If you're loving what you're hearing, please don't just listen.
Hit the subscribe button and the like button, and please share with your friends.
You can also leave a comment down below.
Thank you so much for subscribing. Back to the episode.
Obviously, it goes without saying you're a dark-skinned black woman.
Am I?
You are.
Oh, wow.
Maybe not everyone listening knows that, but you are.
Yeah.
Whilst I am a black mixed race woman,
You
with
are?
lighter skin.
Yes.
And let's face it, this kind of discussion is not easy between lighter and dark-skinned women.
No.
Particularly when there's a mixed race element involved. Mm-hmm. So I am curious, what have your experiences of mixed race identity been?
I think, again, going back to my early years, as I've said in previous episodes, I had these two worlds. There was my home life and my church life, because they were kind of really one thing. They were intertwined. And that was very, very Nigerian. And then there was my school life outside of the home that was very British. In my home life, in the Nigerian community, it was very interesting.
I'm laughing because I know, when I first encountered my group of Nigerian friends in school, the way they related to mixed identity and me was a lot. So I'm waiting for whatever you're going to say with bated breath.
So in that community, it was very, they referred to mixed race people as, fair.
Yeah.
That fair girl.
Yeah.
That fair boy.
Yeah.
They would also refer to them as yellow.
Yeah.
That yellow girl.
That's the
yellow
one I
boy.
remembered.
Yellow gear. Now, I know that that's quite offensive now, but that's how, mixed race people were referred to. It's definitely by their characteristics. And the other thing was like their hair. It was like they have Oyibo hair. It's nice. And so when a mixed race person came along who didn't have that hair, it was almost like something's gone wrong. It was like, yeah, yellow.
But you don't have the best of
But your hair is conk. Strong hair. It was always very confusing. It always confused me because my default was that mixed race people had a certain kind of hair. So if they didn't, it was almost like, oh, that's so interesting.
Yeah.
And there's almost a feeling of, I feel for you.
So those mixed race people couldn't go around saying, I have the best of both worlds, because in the schema that people were saying.
No, they got the best of a little bit here and not so good.
That's terrible, because even that's
awful.
a hierarchy.
I know,
Anyway,
it's so bad.
Like,
it's really, 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 really
terrible.
bad. It's so bad. Like, I think about these things. I mean, I'm laughing, but it actually isn't funny.
Yeah.
And it's actually quite, I don't know. It's not great.
Okay.
And what I would say is on the British side, back then in sort of like the late 80s and 90s, the term that was used for mixed race people was half-caste.
Yep, definitely.
Which is a really derogatory term.
Yeah.
Like it's a horrible term because it's basically saying that you are only half human. Is that what it's saying? Have I got that right?
Well, yeah. I mean, is it saying half human or half of one type of ethnicity, essentially? Yeah.
Okay, so half-caste is a derogatory term to describe individuals of mixed racial heritage, particularly in a colonial context.
Yeah.
And it implies a perceived impurity or lack of purity based on racial categories. And obviously the part of them that is impure is the black part. The term caste traditionally referred to a system of social stratification based on birth, often with implications of purity or impurity.
Yeah, exactly.
So half-caste suggests that individuals of mixed heritage are not fully belonging to any specific caste or racial group.
Yeah, so it's not half human, it's half not belonging to any group.
Yes.
Do you see what I mean?
Exactly.
Yeah.
So like it's a deeply problematic term, but that was how we referred to mixed race people.
Referred to growing up. It
Yeah.
was normal. That's kind of why I had a weird reaction to it, because
Yeah.
it was at one point not at all considered derogatory.
Exactly. And then out again in the British context, when I think about in school, it would be, there was definitely a bit of a hierarchy, it seemed like, with mixed race people perceived as being more beautiful, having good hair, nicer hair, and then to some degree being perceived as stush or a bit, I don't know how to explain that, but like up their own asses a bit, like they feel better than, full of themselves, if that makes sense. That was the perception of mixed race people. However, growing up on the estate I grew up on, my auntie Emily lived next door to a interracial couple where the dad was black, Caribbean, I think he was Jamaican, and the mum was white English, and they had a daughter who was mixed raced called Ebony.
Oh, okay.
The irony of that name is very interesting, but I love it. And she was brilliant. But Ebony was brilliant. You know, she was basically like one of us.
Yeah.
She had a massive pit bull that we were all terrified of on our estate.
Yeah, okay.
And which is one of the things. So for us as black Nigerian kids looking at Ebony, it was like, oh, Ebony's cool and we like her. And she's got a cool dad because he was like one of the tough guys on the estate. You know what I mean? He was a bit of a gangster, a bit of a drug dealer. But Ebony was cool, but she could do things that we couldn't do as black Nigerian kids.
Yeah.
By virtue of the fact for us that she was mixed race and had a white mum.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. That's a real thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So for example, having a dog in your house, none of us had a dog in our house.
That's what came to my head when you told
that was the
story.
first thing. It was just like, dog in the house, yeah, that's not really something that we do as black people. And then she was allowed to just play out basically whenever she wanted, and she could stay out a lot later than us. We weren't allowed to do those things. We were fundamentalist Christians as well, so it kind of dictated how you played, who you played with, and whether or not you even played outside or not. And I mostly was not allowed to play outside. So that was another differentiating factor. She also could talk a certain way. You know, with her mum, they had a certain interaction, very familiar in a way that didn't happen in our culture. Like there's a hierarchy, the adults are on top. You spoke when you're spoken to, children are seen and not heard, discipline was strong and it was strict and it was unequivocal. Whereas with them, it wasn't. There was negotiation between her and her mum. There was a familiar conversation, almost like a friendly conversation, which is alien to us. And again, we attributed that to the fact that she's mixed race with a white mum, and so she can get away with things that we can't get away with. So there's a difference between us, even while we know that she's cool and we like her, and she wasn't like some of the mixed race people who were, to us, stush and a bit up themselves, you know?
Yeah.
So that's on the British side of my experience. So there was a lot of stereotypes, a lot of misunderstandings, a lot of assumptions of mixed race people when I was growing up.
There is a level of stushness that can come with people being socialized to think, oh, they're more beautiful because they're lighter, or they're more beautiful because they have this kind of hair, or that permissiveness in the relationship with the mother can be an element of either culture or a level of privilege. You get away with certain things, right? And I know that as a mixed race person myself, right? Even in Botswana, as much as I was saying, you know, it was easier to be mixed race there were all sorts of hierarchies. And in Botswana, we have a word like that was often used for mixed people, including directed at me, which is translates as, oh, she likes things. That's the direct translation.
And how is it said?
It basically means she thinks she's above us. She thinks she's better than us.
And how do you say it in Setswana?
Ratadilo, I think is how you would say it. I've probably butchered it. Someone's going to write in and say...
It sounded great to me.
Well, it's only because you don't know. If you know, you know. Anyway, the point is, it's like saying she's above herself. But it gets used, it's not just a mixed race thing. It gets used to anyone who's not really... I guess being communal, or it can be said of women who dress well and look nice out of envy. You know, that you say, oh, she likes things, she thinks she's better. Or it can be said of, I say that, I'm thinking of someone I saw it directed at who was Botswana, who was like black, she wasn't mixed race, and it would get said of her. And most of the time when I looked at it, it was just like, she looks great. So are you just hating? What's happening here? So I mean, it's a phrase that gets used in a lot of circumstances, but it was directed often at mixed people because often you are subject to kind of privilege.
Yeah, and I think that's one of the things that I definitely saw growing up is that because of their closeness to whiteness, they were, I don't know, it seemed like they were kind of valued differently. Because I remember even in my community, it was like to be fair-skinned was the holy grail. We talked about it in episode 3, where we talked about Call the Midwife and the mixed race baby there. And we talked about how a lot of black women and even Asian women want to have a fairer, lighter skinned baby and will do all sorts of things to try and ensure that they have a light skinned baby.
Yeah.
And they would even look at the different parts of the child's body, the tip of the ear and the top of the cuticle, to see how dark that baby's going to be. Why is that even important? Why? Because they want a baby that's closer to whiteness, because the perception is, at least my understanding is, that baby will have easier go at life.
Yeah.
Because apparently mixed race people, lighter skinned people move through the world a bit easier than their darker skinned counterparts.
Yeah, and that's true, I believe. I really, truly believe that to be the case.
Yeah.
So in all the things I'm saying about mixedness, I don't want it to seem like that's not the case. It is the case. You know, having a closeness to a white man or whiteness, it does confer privilege on you. It does make certain things easier. It does do all those things. So some of those responses are completely fair. Sometimes they're directed when it's not quite the case, but a lot of the time it's just completely fair.
Yeah, and I think as well, one of the things I observed, so I was never going to be allowed to have a boyfriend. It was just a no-no. So I didn't even bother with that sort of thing. But one thing I did notice with the girls in my school who were looking to have a boyfriend or, you know, and they were dark-skinned, the way that mixed race girls were prized above and beyond dark-skinned girls was such a bone of contention.
Yeah.
The tension between the dark-skinned girls and the mixed race girls was so strong and so palpable.
Yeah.
And there were horrible words used, like, you know, if someone was dark, quite dark, they'd be called like blick. And that was like the highest insult that you could give to someone, right? And then obviously then there'd be an equal and opposite response to the mixed race person, you know, i.e. being called stush or, you know, lots of words, you know, sometimes being called a slut and things like that. And I'd see a lot of beef between dark-skinned girls and mixed race girls.
Do you have any standout memories of that? Or
Yes.
did you ever experience conflict with mixed race girls growing up?
Okay, so for me, seeing all of that,
Yeah.
I was just like, I want none of it. So I just didn't fuck with mixed race people at all.
Fair.
Because my attitude was, I'm not under you.
Yeah.
And I'm not going to play into that. And you're not going to come around here trying to make me feel less than because your skin is lighter. I was just like, no way. Because remember, at that point, particularly in my teens, I was becoming politicized.
Yeah.
I'm reading Malcolm X's autobiography and Muhammad Ali's autobiography. And I'm reading books about Black history and the ways that the slave masters would divide and conquer us with House Negro and the Field Negro. I was reading all sorts of books about stuff, you know? And I was like, you're not going to come around here and bring that colonizing bullshit into my life.
Yeah.
That's just the end of the story.
Yeah.
So I'm not playing into that. And if that's how you want to stay, you stay there on your own because I'm not going to be there with you.
Yeah.
So as a result, I just didn't.
You just didn't have time for it.
I didn't interact with mixed race people. Never dated one. Never had any interest.
So would you say that was more disinterest, contempt, resentment? Like, how would you characterize that decision to be like, I don't fuck with these people?
What it is that I was unapologetically
Resistance.
No, I was unapologetically pro-Black.
Yeah.
So I only wanted to be around people who were unapologetically pro-Black at that point in my life. And the people that I was around, any of the mixed race people, it just wasn't that. They were just very much into things that I wasn't into. That's just the mixed race people where I was.
Yeah.
They just were not into the things I was into. The people that were into what I was into tended to be Black Caribbean, Black African. They tended to be Rastas. Do you know what I mean? Or like a derogatory term, I know, but Hoteps, like very like Pan-African.
Yeah.
Black power.
Black power.
They tended to be that, like really kind of militant people.
Yeah.
And the kind of hip hop I was into was that, like very conscious and unapologetic, you know? So I just didn't encounter, you know what I mean? If you were a mixed race person in that world, and I don't really recall any, honestly, at that period of my life, you would have been that and it would have been okay.
Yeah. So do you remember any specific instances of you being in conflict with mixed race girls or other people around you?
Yeah, for sure. It was my best friend at the time in high school, and she had a boyfriend. She was dark-skinned and Caribbean, and she had a boyfriend. And something happened where her boyfriend cheated on her with a mixed race girl. Oh. So
this is going to be awful.
Yeah, it was awful. And, you know, like I've said before, I went to the shittiest schools in the shittiest boroughs, estates, whatever you want to call it. But they're bad schools. They're schools where at the end of school, our school is going to go down and fight another school, or that school's coming down to fight our school. Like it's that kind of one of them ones,
school
right?
beef in
that sort of thing, right? And they were brutal. Yeah. Like we were featured in a newspaper for our fights. They'd write whole columns on our school.
Was it like reality TV, but for newspaper columns?
Oh, absolutely, yeah. I mean, my school was second from the bottom of the league tables. In fact, all the schools I've gone to have been closed down because they were so bad that not even superheads could come in and save them. Like these were brutal schools that I went to. So this is the context in which this is happening.
Yeah.
Now, this mixed race girl goes to another school that we already have beef with.
Not even in the same...
it's not the same school.
Oh, God.
That's the thing.
Okay.
And it's those days where, you know, black guys preferred light-skinned girls because they exoticize them, fetishize them. It's the hair, it's the skin, it's the eyes, it's the European nose.
That little
and
nose and the little freckles sometimes.
Yeah, you know
and
what I
all
mean?
of that. And that little mixed race curl
The little
here
curl.
laid on the edge.
Yeah,
Smooth.
that the dark-skinned girls would try to do, but it didn't always work.
Did it
and it was all about the baby hairs.
Yeah, it's
the
all about
baby
the baby
hairs and all
hairs.
of that sort of thing. And
Laying
laying it
them.
down with some jam.
Oh, the jam.
Not strawberry jam. It was a hair product called jam.
Yes, I still have it. I've never used it for that particular purpose. But
But it was there.
Yeah.
It left some sort of white residue. That would just be there, like caked on. Anyway, so this is the context.
Yeah.
So now it's the end of the day and we're all going to go now and meet this girl and her friends from their school.
The mixed race girl
who's cheated with
your friend's guy.
So we go, it's the end of school and it's like warriors getting ready for battle, you know, it's just like, nah, man, we're not gonna, you know, no, all of this, you know, it's just like proper G'ing ourselves. Like, I'm not G'ing myself up because I'm just like, shit, I've got to be home by a certain time because I come from a very insular, strict community. I'm like, can I get up there and back in time? Anyway, so that's my fear. We G ourselves up. We go all the way up to the Foot Locker because that's where
That's where you got to start your beef.
That's where your beef starts, outside Foot Locker. The other kids from the other school start coming in. The mixed race girl is leading the charge with one of her girls. And my friend is leading the charge with me.
You were right in the mix.
And I'm just like literally, I am the nerdiest, most awkward black girl. I have a pair of NHS specs with a wadge of sellotape in joining the arm to the actual frame of the glasses. I've got big chunky plaits. I'm skinny. I've got these white socks pulled up to my knees. My kneecaps are ashy. It's just not a good look. I should not be leading the charge at all. But there I am at the front, leading the charge with my best friend, whom I love to death. So I'm like, okay, we're going to lead the charge. We get outside Foot Locker, and as happens, everyone starts throwing insults. You've cheated on my man. Like, what are you doing? Like,
you cheated on my man.
No, you've cheated. Oh, there we go.
Sorry.
Yeah. You've cheated with my man. You fucking slag. And then the other one's like, no, well, you can't keep a man because why is he coming to? And I'm just like, there, like, oh God, shit. I'm looking at the time, like, oh.
I need to leave unscathed and quickly.
We wrap up. And I hope I don't get dragged in because I know that if one of her friends jumps in, I've got to jump in. That's the rule. And I'm looking at her friends, sizing them up like, how big are they? Could I possibly take them on? Anyway, the tempo rises.
Okay.
Insults are flowing. People's chests are coming out. Yeah. They're moving closer to each other.
Yeah.
And then the first blow lands. And I'm like, okay, here we go. And it was the
Who landed the first blow?
It was the mixed race girl. She just grabbed my friend and just grabbed her hair.
She the one who cheated
yes.
and
yes.
did the violence first?
Yes. And then it was the most brutal fight I think I've ever witnessed in my life.
Wow.
It was brutal. Oh. There were braids on the floor.
Oh no.
We left a path of braids on the floor.
Oh God, that's awful.
The punches that were thrown, they were dragging each other about by hair, by clothes, punching, scratching. The fight moved from the Foot Locker all the way out the shopping centre to the bit outside because the shopkeeper was like, get out. It's all these
of course.
fucking
You
black
don't want that
kids.
in your store.
Do you know what I mean?
Even though that is your main target audience.
It was brutal. And then eventually we managed to get them apart. They went their way and I was left with my friend and she just looked like she'd been through the wars, like face swollen and scratched, hair all over the place, braids out. It was a really brutal, it's a fight that I can't ever forget. And it was because of this thing called colourism and a cheating boyfriend.
Yeah, of course. I mean, were there racialized slurs thrown to each other in that flight?
I can't remember exactly, but I'm pretty sure they would have been.
Okay.
You know, I'm pretty sure. Because those were the days of you're blick, you're this. You know, I mean, it just, yeah, I'm pretty sure.
That is wild. And I just want to say that that kind of violence perpetrated by mixed people who really feel they're better than is one of the reasons why I refer to myself as like black mixed race, because I feel like having a race politics that is centered in blackness is really important. But I would never just say I'm black because I'm mixed race. And you have to also acknowledge that there's a white side there, and that also brings in a level of privilege. So I feel like it's the best way to state like my politics and also like acknowledge the privilege that comes with it. Because, you know, like that is horrific. That should not be happening.
No, it shouldn't. It really shouldn't. But also in that situation, my friend should really have been taking it out on the boy because he was the one that had a responsibility to her relationship.
Yeah, sure. I mean, the mixed race girl did land the first blow, first and foremost.
True.
Second of all, of course, it should have happened with a man. And mixed race, white, black, we know that kind of thing happens with women all the time, where a guy can come along, do the worst, and the women take it out on each other.
Yes.
And you're just like, you're fighting over some guy who's
not even worth
not
it.
even all that, probably. And then whatever. But all that aside, there was clearly an element to that was like about colorism.
Oh, absolutely. Fully.
Okay, so I completely get why you would have been like, I'm not dealing with these people. So you were obviously now married to a mixed race woman.
know. How did I get here?
And that's what I want to know. That was my question. Like, how did this happen?
I mean, you know, the bottom line is back then that was a reaction to quite strong colorism, and I didn't want any part of it. And so, but obviously you grow up. It's like I talked about in the Black and British episode, right? You grow out of it. It's like you learn to find the people who are aligned with you, regardless of what their race is.
Yeah.
Whether they are, I mean, a lot of harm was done to me by Caribbean kids, but yet I have lots of Caribbean friends now because you learn to, it's not as black and white, right? So,
Okay.
but do you see what I mean? So I think what it is that over time you find your people.
Yeah.
You find the ones you're aligned with. You find the ones who aren't colorist, for want of a better term. I dated a mixed race person in my 20s.
Before me, I'm not the first.
You're not the first.
Okay, so tell me about the mixed race person you dated in your 20s.
So he was a guy,
Okay.
but he was American.
Oh, that's kind of different.
So it's a little bit different,
Yeah.
you know. So his understanding of him being mixed, but then he was American, but adopted by white Americans and raised by white Americans. So again, different still. So for him, what I found with him when I look back on it now, it kind of, this is going to sound really bad, but it did feel like dating a white guy because he had no real black references.
That's so interesting.
The things he was interested in, the things he talked about, it was just very white, interestingly enough.
It's so interesting because when you said he was mixed race and American, the first place my brain went to was like, oh, people who are lighter skinned in America think of themselves as black if they're mixed.
Yeah.
And so the fact that he's adopted by this white family and
Yes.
has no cultural reference points,
Yes.
that completely shifts what I assumed you were going to say.
Exactly, yeah.
So what was that experience like?
It was interesting because when he did try to have the cultural references, they didn't feel believable. They felt like things that maybe he'd read or maybe had a slight connection with, but not in a, it wasn't embodied. It wasn't from his foundation, if that makes sense. It felt kind of loose.
Like he was having to learn how to be black.
Almost.
And then trying it out.
Yeah.
Kind of.
Yeah.
It's quite sad.
It is sad, but again, that was a different experience with a mixed race person. And yeah.
Did you ever discuss openly his identity?
No.
Really?
Not really, no. Other than
so-
just knowing that he was raised by white parents in America.
That's so fascinating to me because I can't imagine you knowing your kind of politics and your influences and the music you're into and also the conversations we have.
I just
can't imagine you.
Do you know
not
what it
being able
was?
to
He
have that.
wasn't political in that way.
Yeah.
And when he would talk about politics, they were often American politics that I was just like, he would talk about stuff that I just was like, I don't get it. Because for me, I was only interested in African American politics.
Oh, I see. So he would talk about
like Reagan or some shit. I don't know.
Yeah.
You know?
That's so interesting.
So then I was just like, and then he'd talk about like the Trilateral Commission and...
So did he have quite a liberal white worldview because of the culture he had been?
I think so. Yeah. That's how and he was like really into weed, obsessed with weed.
Okay.
And the culture of weed. But the white culture of weed, it was all, I found it really strange. Like I was just like, oh, this is so interesting, because my understanding of weed really came from Rastafarians.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So there was like a music, there was a religious component, there was it's a herb from the ground that was given by God. It was like there was a very black and very black understanding, whereas his was very much, I read High Times magazine and I go to Amsterdam to growing festivals, and it's about like quite scientific, and it was like lots of white boys in a room getting high. It was, do you know what I mean? Like it was a side of thing. I was just like, I don't understand what's going on.
It's so interesting because I think I've said this before to you in maybe a different episode or definitely in life, that this is why I think it's so important to distinguish between race and ethnicity. And for me, that race it's something that you can't control, in the sense that it's your phenotype and how you, like, meaning the shape of your nose, your eyes, things that people would associate with a particular ethnic group, right? And a particular kind of culture.
Yeah.
Those are things that are not in, you know, those things make up your identity, and they're generally not in your control. I mean, you can have a nose job, but you know, it requires you to change something fundamental. Michael Jackson tried that. He did. And the less said about that, the better. Whereas like ethnicity for me is also about like culture and what you choose and what you're socialized into, so that it's possible to be black. And if you're raised by white parents like he was, you can literally have this, what people perceive to be as very white culture. And then people do all sorts of weird policing. Like when people are into like the black emo kids, it's like, that's a white thing. You're not supposed to do that. But obviously he's raised in that. So he's kind of white as well, right?
Yeah.
Like, it's like, I find it like an interesting phenomenon.
Yeah, absolutely. And I just could never quite get my head around it fully.
I can imagine it would be very confusing if you're steeped in black culture and suddenly you're like, oh, there's something I recognize. Did he look? How did he look? How did he?
No, he looked mixed race. Yeah,
he looked mixed race.
Yeah, kind of like your kind of skin tone.
So you identified him as that, and then you felt no.
Yeah, it was just like it felt disconnected.
Yeah,
and a bit discombobulated, honestly.
Yeah, you couldn't recognize something in your cultural reference points.
Yeah, because again, like I said, I grew up with mixed race people who were pretty much black. We were in a black neighborhood in mostly black schools, at least in London. I'm talking about London now, not Leeds. But, you know, and these mixed race people were they had black references. They wore, you know, the black fashion of the day. They talked in black slang. They had a black parent, or they had black family around them. They grew up on an estate. Do you know what I mean? Like
blackness was integral to the experience.
Yeah, and I couldn't see that in him. And that was so interesting to me, because I was like, oh, I've never seen a mixed race person like this before. Yeah. So it was almost like I didn't even have a script of how to even react. So it was just like, well, I like you as a person and you like me, so let's get on with it, I guess.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
No, totally.
None of my scripts could come in to go, oh, you're a bit stush, or you're just a pretty boy, or none of that could
none
really...
of it worked, because this was an American mixed race kid who presented in these very white ways that were also very different to the whiteness you knew, probably.
Exactly.
I mean, this is why I love talking mixed race identity, because to go back to my point earlier, people often don't know what to do with mixed people because they don't neatly fit into boxes and categories.
Yes.
And it makes it hard to understand, right? And mixed race experiences, in my opinion, are so varied. As much as I've talked about, like, there is a kind of dominant growing population here, which is Caribbean and white, there's also so much variation. There's people who have the father's white or the father's black, and I think that shapes who you are.
But also you get mixed race people who've got a white mum, but the white mum is steeped in black culture and raises them to know their black history and knows black history and African history and plays the music and keeps them grounded, makes the food and knows how to do their hair, and it's just...
Exactly.
You know?
And then on top of that, you get mixed race people who both parents are mixed. I've seen that too.
Yeah.
And that's a whole different
That's a
thing
whole
because
different thing.
it plays out completely different.
Yeah.
And then on top of all of those ones, there's also the fact that when you're mixed, you can come out looking like, even in the same family, when you have mixed kids, you can come out looking different. Like,
yes.
My brother's hair is much more tightly coiled. His skin is darker than mine, etc., etc.
Oh, is his skin darker than yours?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, it is.
Okay.
So just for a second, going back to that mixed race American guy, I'm still curious about how you got from even him to me, because my impression when I met you was that a race politics and blackness was important to you. So were there any other mixed race people between that time, or how did you think about blackness in your dating life after that experience?
There were no mixed race people until I met you. Yeah, there was no mixed race people.
Was that a conscious choice as well, or?
I think I just didn't hang around with mixed race people, honestly. The reason why I dated him is we worked together. We were working together in the same restaurant. Outside of that, I didn't really interact with many mixed race people, honestly.
Okay.
Maybe there was the odd one, like maybe on the scene, the music scene, I don't know, but I didn't really interact with that many mixed race people. Mostly the people I interacted with were black or white.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm going to be honest, when I met you, I kind of felt like, well, I think this did come up. Your impression was that I would be someone who dated a white man. Do you remember?
Did I say that?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. You were like, I didn't know if you were queer, and I kind of thought you'd be the person who dated a white man. That was one thing you said. But also my impression of you was that you'd probably be someone who, just because of how II Studios presents and what you present of your politics, who probably explicitly sought out blackness and black women in your dating life.
That's interesting, because a lot of the people that I would go on dates with or talk to or be interested in, like black women, would often say to me that they thought that I was a vegan tree hugger who maybe wanted a white girl.
Oh, what?
I don't know what it is about me.
Really?
But I got that quite a bit.
That is wild to me. That is not at all the assumption I put on you.
Yeah, when I'm like, I want some mince or some, chicken or some...
They'd be shocked.
They'd be like, oh, I thought you were a vegan.
That's wild to me. Okay. But going back to my question, did you ever have something, did you have a preference in terms of your dating?
Yes.
Tell me what it was.
I think I always just saw myself with a black, dark-skinned African woman.
Exactly. I thought so. We took a long time to get there, but I was like, I feel like, your reference points and who you are and your politics, it would be like the blacker the berry, the sweeter the juice. Oof. Which is a head fuck for mixed race people. But I think it's a great cultural reference.
I think that all came about in response to the shit that dark-skinned people were going through, where it was just like, all the big sportsmen would have a white woman on their arm. 100%. If they didn't have a white woman on their arm, they had a mixed race woman on their arm. Like, even Malcolm X, said it, that the most hated woman, the most hated person on earth is the black woman, right? So I think a lot of those phrases came about to counteract that and to boost us up a little bit and give us a bit of self-confidence.
I fully understand that. Yeah. And as much as I'm saying that can be a head fuck, which I'll explain why, the bottom line is those were my dating preferences.
What? The black of the berry, the sweet of the juice?
Yeah, I mean, I didn't actually say it in my head.
And here I am.
No, here you are. But what was important to me was to have someone who understood my connection to the African continent, that my family lived there.
Same.
That they could understand that I wanted somebody who could understand that aspect of my identity.
Yes.
And where I wouldn't have to explain myself on that front, ideally. It was not that I wasn't open, but I dated enough to be like, it would just be nice to be seen on that front.
Yeah, absolutely. And I knew that I wanted them to be grounded in their Africanness. That's important to me. And meeting you just flipped all of the scripts on its head about mixed raceness and mixed race identity, because you were a mixed race woman with an African mum and a white father. Mm-hmm. I'd only seen that really once before, if I'm not mistaken, in our church, where there was a African woman who had a child with a white British man. So then obviously that child is obviously mixed race. So you were that. You were born and raised in Africa. And your politics was just so strong. And I wasn't expecting that.
Really?
So I was just like, what? What is going on here? You know?
What was your impression of that? And when
I think when you
went from thinking I would be with a white man. So like,
because when you spoke, because, you know, for me, the way you spoke and the way you conducted yourself, it felt like maybe you were a bit middle class. Like you certainly don't come from where I come from.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So I was like, well, for you to be mixed race and to speak the way you speak, conduct yourself the way you conduct yourself, doing a PhD, you must come from a very white place.
Yeah. Which is also true, actually.
Do you see what I mean?
Yeah.
So therefore, maybe you would go out with a white man. Because at that point, I didn't necessarily know that you were queer really fully in that way.
Okay, so this is your first impression from afar. Okay,
yeah, because you remember, exactly.
And that's a totally understandable one. And also it's not inaccurate in some, apart from the preferences, the bottom line is, I did come out of a very white world and there is class privilege attached to that, which is also close to the white side.
Exactly.
So I get it.
Exactly. You know? So those were the assumptions that I made, and they were assumptions and they were proven wrong. And I'm glad they were proven wrong.
Partial.
Proven partially wrong. Absolutely. And I'm glad, because I'm glad that we met. I'm glad that we connected, and I'm glad that we're married. Like, it's the most important relationship in my life.
Ditto. And likewise, but I want to go back to the...
Go back.
Not that I don't want to just like bypass the glad we met. I'm like, so how did it become obvious to you that there was something different here?
It was when we first started talking and you told me about... So the first thing was you being born and raised in Botswana. And then talking about South Africa. And I think in one of our conversations on one of our dates, you just started doing the South African accent. And then you also did the accent of your mum.
Okay.
Right? And I was just like, oh, shit. Like, you're African.
Yeah, because so that's interesting. So it was something about the middle class voice is gone.
Yes.
And you're now doing this thing.
Yeah. And I was like, oh, okay, yes. Yeah.
I do remember that date, because I remember you being like,
yeah.
What? On one level, I really like that you see that part of me. And on another level, I know there's people back home who'll be like, her African, like she is not African. And this is the dilemma of the mixed race condition. But what I would say is that for me, us having that connection, or at least seeing that in each other, whether or not anybody else agrees, was very, very important to me. Because prior to being with you, I myself had dated people. I remember once being involved with a black man who endlessly anguished in the dating stage about the fact that he had this really radical black politics, and despite having spent so much of his time talking about how mixed race people suffer racism and, you know, all this race politics stuff, also kept saying, but, I couldn't possibly be with a mixed race woman because then people would think I was a sellout. And I was just like, he was like, I have to be with a black woman. And I was like, okay, so you basically don't see my blackness. You see part of the blackness.
That's the thing.
It's conditional blackness. You say you like my politics and my values. And, in the end, I was just like, I'd been through enough therapy that I was just like, I didn't even have a conversation about it. I was like, there is no way on this planet I can be with someone who does not make an effort to understand that part of my experience.
Yes.
Because there's nobody who's going to take away or give me or confer upon me either blackness or whiteness.
Yes.
I know exactly what I am.
Yeah.
And I believe it's my job to understand all of those facets.
Yes.
But in a partner, you need someone who's prepared to also understand that.
Yes.
And to hold space for it, even if they don't get it. There's things about your experience I don't get or I haven't had directly, but I have learned and continue to learn through you.
Yes.
So like, to me, you've been like very open, I would say, in whatever baggage you had come from with really quite violent, behavior from mixed race people as well. Like, you've always been very open.
Yeah. But also, you got to also remember, in my experience, that as I talked about in the Black and British episode, I talked about the fact that very early on in primary school, I learned quite quickly that just because somebody's Black like you, it doesn't mean that they're for you.
Yeah.
And that they can actively be violent and hostile and abusive 100%. And bullying towards you as a Black person. Because it was the Caribbean kids who bullied me for being African, for a whole host of reasons which we discuss in the episode. So the people that I played with in primary school were white working class. I had my Chinese friend, Wong. And then I had African kids. So there was a couple Nigerian kids, a couple Somali kids. So I learned quite quickly that you judge a person on what they show you and how they treat you. And if they treat you well, that's who you hang with regardless of race.
True.
So there was already an openness in the sense that I was only judging a mixed race person if they were coming to me like they're better than me.
Yeah, no, completely.
But if you come to me with respect,
it
doesn't matter who you are. Hence my mixed race boyfriend. He came to me with respect. There was no baggage. He didn't come to me like he's better than me or he's deigning to go out with a Black, dark-skinned girl. There's none of that. We were with each other because we wanted to be with each other.
Yeah.
If you come to me with respect, I'm open. I don't really give a shit where you're from, honestly.
Yeah.
And it was that early upbringing that really taught me that. So when I met you, although I had my assumptions, I was open to you.
Yeah.
And as long as you were
respectful
to me and you weren't coming to me with some hierarchical bullshit, I was going to be open to you.
Yeah.
So I think that's important for me to state.
No, completely. And it's part of why I love you. We share a perspective on that, right? Like, I'm not going to pretend that those differences don't exist, but it comes down to your values and your politics at the end of the day.
Yeah.
Can we align on it?
Exactly.
So since we've been together, have you noticed any reactions to our dynamic among your peers or friends, like you having dated a mixed race person at all?
Not specifically because you're mixed race and I'm dark skinned, but certainly I've had conversations with friends and peers about just generally, dating as a queer woman who is mask presenting. And I remember one of the conversations that I had with a filmmaker friend of mine was that me being a mask presenting woman, going out with a mixed race feminine woman almost matches the dynamic of those sports stars and public figures, the dark-skinned men who would date a mixed-raced woman or a white woman, and that it can be maybe seen that way, even though that's not what's playing out here. Because also mass presenting, I don't even believe in any of that shit. I'm a tomboy, always have been. I wear comfortable clothes. The only reason I don't wear makeup is because I wasn't raised to wear makeup because we weren't allowed. And I have very sensitive skin, so it breaks out. So a lot of the things that people put on me as mask presenting, I don't really see it that
Just
way.
Who you are.
I am who I am. I'm a woman. I'm not trying to be a man.
Yeah.
I'm not trying to ape any male characteristics or anything like that,
Yeah.
So I find that quite interesting anyway.
So was it a hang-up that you had before this conversation, or was it something that they brought to you?
They brought it to me because I'd never really thought about it, honestly.
So did they bring it as a question or as an observation? Or?
It was more of an observation because we're talking more broadly about the experiences that they'd had in a relationship with someone who was mixed race.
Oh, and okay, they themselves, and they were also darker skinned.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. So it was brought up in the context of that conversation.
Okay.
Yeah.
It's interesting, isn't it? Yeah, because I've always found that really fascinating, even in this is not about me being a mixed race person, but watching, say, my mum and dad, how much they had to face having an interracial relationship and the commentary that comes from the outside.
Yeah.
So
yeah,
it's an interesting thing to like this. And the person I described to you, who was so obsessed with people will think I'm a sellout, was clearly concerned about what other people would think and how it would reflect on him over and above any feelings that they had for me.
Yeah, because there's been a lot of judgment on black men,
yeah,
dark-skinned black men, and the choices they make in women. That's been a massive conversation in the black community.
Yeah.
Black men, they only want to date white women or mixed race women because privilege, closeness to whiteness,
selling
status,
out,
but also
status.
It's a status symbol as well,
which
is a horrible thing to call another human being a status symbol or a trophy or whatever it is.
Yeah.
But those are the conversations we've been having. So I imagine for him, he was wrestling with that, because when he turns up, a bit like me, turn up with you to that friend, it represents something, whether I agree with it or not.
And I completely get that. But also it's horrible to be reduced to a trophy
yes.
when you're expressing yourself to someone.
Exactly.
So it's like everybody is in this really weird bind because of these scripts and the way racism functions.
Exactly. But I don't play into any of that. I'm with a person because I love that person, and it's a relationship that is meaningful to me because I'm dating a human being first and foremost.
Yeah, ditto. But I do like that we share an African
I do. I have to say I do. It's definitely a preference. Definitely a preference.
I love all the other things and I love that too.
Yeah, no, it's beautiful.
Okay, so coming back to the dude at the top of the episode, because I really do want to come back to him.
Let's come back to him.
I just want to go one by one because I said this. His take was mixed race people are more emotional, more triggered, and we may have mental health issues. I've said quite a lot, but I hope it's clear that sometimes if you live in a world with multiple scripts and situations in which you don't win, maybe there's a reason for that. Mm-hmm. Okay? So that's just my take. I'm not speaking on behalf of mixed race people. I'm just saying that that's a thing. But do I think I'm more emotional than the average person? Who knows? What is the average person? Does he not get emotional? He seemed very emotional on the topic.
He was very emotional on that topic.
So I don't know. I feel like that's just some kind of weird red herring. Are mixed race people proper black people? I just can't even with that question. Like,
it's down to them to identify how they want to identify.
Thank you. That's the wisest thing said on that matter this episode. And mixed race people go harder for black issues than black people. I go hard for what I think of as justice, full stop. I'm sorry, black, white, pink, green, yellow, blue, if you don't go hard for the stuff you care about. I just don't understand that.
There you go.
And I know plenty of people who go hard for stuff of all races. And that I know because I have a sister, just sit down. I also have a black wife.
Have several seats. Is what we need to say on that. That's it from us. Thank you so much for joining us on this episode of Rigour and Flow.
Yeah, we'd love to hear your comments and your thoughts on what we talked about today below.
And don't forget to like and subscribe because it really helps other people to find us.
Yes. Catch you next time on Rigour and Flow.
Thank you.